Welcome to the Phil and the Kid podcast. I'm Phil Gardner.
And I'm Spiro Briselis.
And today we're talking about the bee in Brrrr. That's a big yeet. It's a Texas size 10-4.
Do we leave? Like, that's it? Was that good or should I do it again?
That's fine.
Okay.
For some reason you can have it in one take. Oh, also, one of my clients told me we should be on Spotify podcast.
Yeah, we should be on Spotify.
I don't know why we're not. I'm going to make a note right now because I literally forgot to make that note.
Yeah, Spotify
Sorry,
podcast
Sean.
would be big. So, we're going to get on Spotify podcast. That's our next step. So right now we're on iTunes podcast, YouTube, Google Play, Podbean, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. But I think our next step is to get on Spotify.
Oh, for sure.
So that everybody could listen to us on Spotify, you know?
Are we talking right now?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we started. I think we started.
We started half an hour ago, and I'm just now getting here.
Yep.
Sick. Okay.
So we're back in the booth.
Back in the
Phil
booth.
and the Kid back in the booth.
That's it. It's exciting
It's
times.
been a long, busy week.
Yeah. A lot of client work.
Yeah.
A lot of showings. A lot of tours.
Yep.
I feel like a tour bus driver this week. Like, I lost my voice. You can maybe still hear it a little bit. I lost my voice like 2 or 3 days in a row.
You were a little sick too earlier in the week.
Yeah, it didn't help the whole process.
No.
And then just kind of going on we do these like 3-hour property tours where we take kind of like a new client and it's like a fast track education session. A little bit like drinking from a fire hose, and you have to listen to Phil talk for basically 3 hours straight.
Which is not fun.
He knows. You got to listen to me talk for 3 hours straight. We go through some properties that are on the market, some properties that are under renovation, so you can see the whole life cycle of a deal. Tell you why it's cool, why it's not, what properties work, what properties don't, what's happening in the area, et cetera, et cetera. So I had, I guess I'm just talking about my week now, but we had a couple of those last week that were very, very interesting. And again, lost my voice. Seeing the same properties and talking about the same properties a few times in a row. Going in and had lots of construction sites, lots of dust. So that was.
Did you have any offers on those?
We're putting in one offer, not from like a tour client, but another client that I've been working with. We have one property that we're considering. I think they're looking at offers on Thursday, so we're going to hang out and wait till Thursday. But I don't think it's going to be too competitive. This one is like an estate sale or like a power of attorney type of thing.
Oh, nice.
So the mom passed away in the home, which is putting a little bit of a stigma on it to keep those end users away. And then the property was like in disrepair for years. The roof is sagging. It's been leaking all over the place. There's mold in every single room on the top floor of the house. So
What's
a lot
asking?
of $645.
$645.
I know.
Where do you find these?
And it's not even that sketchy.
Well, that's not a bad thing though. And,
no, it needs a lot of work,
yeah.
right? Oop, I just ate the mic. It needs a lot of work, but it's not sketchy. That's the biggest thing.
No.
Semi-detached, 2-story property, 3-car parking. It's only 60 years old too. It's in a little bit of a newer subdivision by Toronto standards. And I don't think there's not too much interest. We were there, and Billy, another agent from our brokerage, was showing the property at the same time.
No, really?
His client, yeah. I'm standing across the street with my client, showing him like the roof sag and everything, and I see Billy's car pull up. I'm like, this guy. They weren't there for long. It was a lot of work, so I think his clients were onto something else pretty quickly. And then same time when I was there showing it.
Well, that's what you get. Like we spoke about this on the last podcast, how you got a property for $671.
Mm-hmm.
When you get those properties that are, especially I want to say under $750, under $700 mainly, under $750 depending on the pocket. Like if you're in $1.2 million pockets and you're getting it for $700, definitely needs a lot of work.
It probably needs to be torn down if that's the case.
Yes, but even if you're in like 900,000, 800,000 pockets and there's $650, $700, you're looking at a lot of work for that property. So these aren't turnkey. You're not going to just walk in and, throw a bed down and sleep. You're probably going to want to gut the place or at least change a majority of the features in the that are currently in the place.
Most of our projects see brand new flooring. Half the place is getting, at least some patchwork in terms of drywall repair. New flooring, painting throughout, new light fixtures throughout, new kitchens, new bathrooms, like a pretty extensive renovation. Not like tearing everything down to the studs and going from there, but pretty, at least lipstick wise, a lot of the work needs to be done. And this is where, we're able to get a good deal sometimes because we cut out a whole segment of the market, all these end user types that want at least something that's move-in ready, and maybe they can start working on themselves while they're living in, or something that's like done to the nines and ready to go. That's not our target for this stuff. If it were, you'd hear us talking far more about that $1 million price point and plus, not 600s, 700s.
We also do work in that $1 million range, but that's more of end user stuff. It's less, I guess, less interesting for investors. It's more just all what you want, what you need, and what you're looking for in a property.
An investor can never really compete with the end user buyer who's not necessarily operating on numbers. Yeah. When we're talking about their final offer number, they're operating more on emotion, right?
And then so we met earlier. When was it? Later last week, I guess, after the podcast. Met up in Liberty Village, your home.
My hood.
Where did we go?
The LV.
The
three brewers.
Just
good quiet spot sometimes to just bunker down middle of the day. Smash
really
beer.
Really cheap beer. What was that? Like 5 liters for $40?
Oh yeah, it was nuts. We did not drink the 5 liters during a semi-work meeting-ish type of thing. Podcast meeting, if you will.
Yeah, a little bit
Needed some liquid creativity.
It was a 3:45 meeting. Yeah. What are we going to do? Where do we go from here? It was nice, though. I love Liberty Village.
It's a good spot.
Booming.
Yeah. A lot of condos. Holy.
Yeah. Your little, like, your, what is it? Townhomes?
Towns, yeah.
The towns are just all taken over by condos right around.
Oh, yeah. There's the one corner in and out of Liberty on East Liberty and Strawn. There's, like, one on each corner and then recessed a little bit. There's, like, 1 or 2 more condos going up. And
I saw somebody got, like, a ticket, a little bicycle.
Did what?
What was that little, like, you had a picture on Instagram.
Oh my gosh. our property management.
It
was a tricycle. Some poor kid. Our property management has been just on a rampage lately with there's a lot of people using parking spots that aren't actually parking spots. So they've been on top of those guys. And then a lot of guys put like some storage, or like they keep their tires in their parking spot or something like that. So they're literally they put that note on every single post in the garage and then individually on people's items. And like to the point where there's this poor little pink tricycle got a note that's basically saying, "This is absolutely unacceptable. You need to remove this from the parking spot immediately."
Yeah, check out his what is it? At philg.re.
Yeah. This poor little girl's gonna be devastated when she gets back to her tricycle.
When she looks on your Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah.
So today Precisely. I'm wearing one of our other shirts. Save the deals.
Save the deals from
I'm gonna do a little quick turnaround again.
The new Phil and the Kid fall collection.
For those listening, I just showed the back. There's a big logo on it.
If you want to look at our faces, or you want everybody else to look at our faces while you walk around.
Yeah, I love it. I'm a little vain, but that's okay.
Just a touch.
But save the deals. I mean, that's what we go for. Save the seals, save the deals.
Yep.
Okay, so last week I was in a few meetings. There was, I think, 4 different client or potential client meetings. They went really well, and those meetings usually are for people that are at the beginning of their investing process. They're just kind of trying to learn more. What is investing in real estate? The average person won't know much about it, just like the average person won't know too much about stocks or other ways to invest. So those sessions are usually an hour. My sessions last week were a lot longer. I would say like they averaged an hour and a half, 2 hours. But that's just because the people who meet up are very interested in it, asking a lot of questions, and being proactive. So they come prepared. Everybody brought their own books, pens. Different questions were already written down and explained. I like to share some different books that they could read. I show them some deals that we've worked through, what to look for, and where I help them in the process, which it usually ends up with them being pretty happy and right. wanting to kind of fast forward and fast track their way into it, because a lot of them do realize that the longer you wait in real estate, the more barriers pop up.
Yep.
So, and we're seeing it right now too. There's not as many, I would say,
deals on the market. Yeah, it's kind of a weird dry September. There's a few here and there, like the one I mentioned that we're looking at making an offer on. But yeah, it's been a little bit tough to find some deals this fall.
They're still out there. They're still out there, and I think it's just because the market's really hot right now. Mm-hmm. So you're seeing a lot of end users buying right now before, I guess, Christmas break and the holidays and whatever, New Year.
Exactly.
People don't really want to move around that time, or when it starts snowing. You want to kind of bunker down for the winter. So you see, September, October get really busy, and then November, the final kind of transactions happen, where December is a lot more quiet.
Yeah.
December, and then at the end of January it starts kind of rolling again, where you get February and March, and then full force again.
Yep.
So that's what happened last week. Also did a home inspection. Well, I didn't actually do the home inspection. I was at the home inspection because legally.
You're not actually a home inspector.
No, I'm not. But that was pretty cool. It's always cool watching home inspectors. They know so much about the property, and everybody could learn something from them. It's nice just kind of following them.
Some of the tools these guys have are cool.
Oh,
too,
so
right?
cool.
Like
the heat.
Yeah, the heat camera is my favorite thing.
We had so cool.
There was one time our guy had there's a little bit of an addition in one of the properties with a porch on top of it that you access from the unit above, and we were in the bedroom that was part of the addition, and it did not look like at all there was any kind of moisture damage. You could not see any leaks at all. He goes and he points the camera, the heat camera, towards the ceiling, and in the camera lens you see this gigantic, what looks like a big black pool in the middle of the roof. And he was basically like, listen, you don't have a leak yet, but this is literally, you're looking at it developing, right? So I would never have thought to do that.
No.
Or thought to use those tools. And like the moisture meters they have for the basements are always so huge.
Cool. Yeah, just looking at the air intake and the difference. I think they said it's something around 5 degrees difference. 5 to 10 degrees is where you want to be from the intake to the where it comes out.
Lots of learning.
Yeah, there's a lot of learning. It's really cool. So that's always interesting, and the home buyers, our clients, were there too, so they learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
It's
good when you have a guy that'll he'll talk you through. He'll walk you through the process as he's doing the home.
You can tell he really liked what he was doing too, and he just really enthusiastic about it. So that was
really
good.
Helpful to the buyer,
and everything went well. So there's no issues, and that's good going forward.
Good.
I've also been playing a lot of FIFA lately. It just came out. So I've been a little bit,
Spiro's FIFA addiction.
Yeah, I'm pretty addicted, and I don't think it's going to change. It's such a good game.
Yeah.
Anyways. Let's not
I'll jump on the Modern Warfare train when that's out.
Okay, yeah.
We'll leave that one alone.
Already had it pre-ordered.
Yeah, perfect. We'll have the Phil and the Kid, I don't even know, Modern Warfare.
Yeah, maybe we'll start streaming on Twitch or something.
It's not a stream you want to watch, trust me.
What's
it's a rough
one
stream.
Called? Mixer.
Which?
Mixer. That's where Ninja is now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's sound with Mixer.
Is that a streaming service?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to take on Twitch?
Yeah, it's like Microsoft though, or something. Like I don't know who.
Well, maybe if it comes,
it's pretty
stock on Xbox or something. Then maybe
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I don't know. Trying to take on the Twitch giant is an interesting move.
Today we're going to be talking about the Brrrr process. We brought it up in past podcasts, but today we're going to dive deeper into it.
One letter at least.
Yeah, one letter. We're going to focus on the B, which stands for buy.
Surprise.
Yeah, it's all about buying, and this is what I like to tell my clients is it's the most important part of your deal is buying. I mean, you can argue that renovations or rent or refinancing and obviously repeating are all very important. But if you do buy properly and you get a good deal, a good area, you know the upside of it, no matter what happens in your process, no matter what hiccups come along the way in the renovation process, rent process, refinancing process, and so on, you're always going to have that wiggle room to make a great deal good or a good deal great.
Yeah, you build yourself in a lot of safety by buying
huge
correctly.
Safety net, yes. So that's a really important thing to look at, and buying might be one of the more confusing things, and that's where a lot of inexperienced investors sort of miss out. That's where a lot of people buy and they get excited, and they might not have the proper team around them, supporting them, looking for these properties and so on, giving them good advice. And they buy a property, getting excited because they're like, real estate's always a good investment. I know I'm going to make money. It's not going to be too hard. Yep. And they just kind of jump the gun, which is, it's great to have that enthusiasm. But you quickly learn that real estate isn't always. Actually, for the most part, it could not be that great of a deal if you don't have that solid foundation behind you.
Yeah, especially like in Toronto, for using Toronto as an example, over the past quite a few years, right? People have just been assuming any deal you did in the city is going to appreciate, right? Any deal is going to be always going up in value because it's Toronto and it's safe and it's great, right? There were a lot of guys that got caught in the bottom of 2016, early 2017, before that foreign buyer tax came in, and the market took a tumble and just kind of got caught up in the heat and said, "Oh, I'll buy anything." And at the time, you could have bought anything, and it would, more or less anything, and it would have worked. And then come mid 2017, when they didn't think about the rest of the life cycle of the deal, a lot of guys had to let go of a lot of properties at a loss. Right?
Yeah,
and that's where buying and having a thought out plan ahead of time before you buy and then when you buy is going to have a huge impact as well.
And you see like even minor details that you might miss. I was with a client last week and they told me how they bought a condo and they didn't realize it was facing north, which is, nobody might think that means anything. And to 50, 60, 70% of the population, it might not mean nothing. But when you're facing east and west, you get the sunset, sunrise. And in a condo, that could be very special. Yep. You get that nice lighting just shining through your whole place. I'm talking about condos now that have big windows too, which are 90% of the newer built condos. They're all just open concept. So you get that nice light. So my client was talking to me about it and saying how maybe if they were more informed, if they thought about it more, they would have picked an east or west side, even though it might have been a little more expensive because now the rents aren't as high. Yep. So there's little things like that initial buy stage is super important.
To just circling back to like keeping it on condos for a second as well, thinking of like a southern exposure. When I used to live in City Place, that was a massively important thing for that. It was a little bit important for myself. We had a high story and we had a great view of the lake when we were there. So when you think of south versus all of your other directions in a building, southern exposure could equate to quite a bit more value in the condo. One thing a lot of people don't think about, however, and we learned this the hard way when we were there, was all of the potential buildable space between you and the water. And in our case, they ended up building, in the time that we were there, 1 or 2, and I can see another 3, 4 condos being built in the future. In the available area, if you're not directly on the water and there is any buildable land in front of you, it's gonna get built, right? Yeah. At one point or another, especially in Toronto. So if that's something that you're banking on, again, making sure that you're paying attention to that ahead of time.
So there's a bunch of little things like this that being very informed can help you with, and it usually means doing your homework and surrounding yourself with people that have been in this scenario and know what to look for in different outcomes. It's not going to all be cookie cutter. There's no one way of doing something, and every time, every single client is the same. It works. Yeah. There's always differences. Every property you buy, there's differences. You're going to have different learning experiences and so on. So again, can't stress this enough. The B in Brrrr is, I don't know, do you agree with me?
It's more than likely the most important part. They're all important. They're all important.
It's like 1A, 1B, 1C.
Exactly,
1D.
Right? But it's that piece that if you build yourself in enough margin from up front can save you from problems throughout all of the other items, right? You can't necessarily renovate your way out of a $100,000 purchasing mistake, right?
Exactly. And it does take, so to touch on that $100,000 purchasing mistake might not bother you in the long run, but in the first 4 years, 3 years, until it values there, appreciates more, you're not going to be seeing that money back. And then that repeat stage is going to be put on hold 3 or 4 years. You want that repeat stage happening as soon as possible, 9 to 12 months.
Yeah. It becomes more of a traditional buy and hold rental at that point without the Brrrr strategy involved at all, because there is no repeating in that. No. Right? There's no room left to repeat.
Which is still fine. You still have an investment. It'll be okay, but you're not going to grow your portfolio of properties really quick, which you can in the Brrrr. That's the whole point of the Brrrr strategy. So The Brrrr strategy, for those who don't know, where did it originate from? Is that Bigger Pockets?
Pockets coined
the
the term. It's been
around
a strategy that's used in the commercial or like large multifamily space for as long as I can think of.
I know we have a different term at the office. We have a little booklet that we hand out, and it's pretty similar. It's just different terminology. Yeah. So there's a lot of different people will have different terminology. Depends where you come from. We chose Brrrr because we think the mass majority of people who do listen to real estate podcasts will already know that term.
Yeah.
We can always push towards Bigger Pockets too, and that's something that, how many times do they talk about that per episode?
Oh yeah, that is the favorite strategy of many, right?
Yeah.
And it with merit, right? Because it works, because it allows you to leverage your existing capital on multiple deals over the course of a shorter period of time, right? Instead of waiting for that. The ability to then refinance a property in the long term, you're adding in the value up front that you're going to be able to pull that cash back out.
So the first step in B, and it might sound pretty vague, but it would be buying right. And you might be listening to this and thinking, what does that mean, buying right? Obviously, you want to buy right.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. But what goes into buying right? So Phil, why don't you tell me, what are the first things you look for? I know in the office we talk about this every morning, afternoon, and evening.
That's all we talk about.
All we talk about is buying right. That's most of our job where it comes into play. But what's the first thing you look for?
So step one for a lot of clients, and this is not necessarily only on the Brrrr strategy, is knowing how you're going to finance this property, right? So if you know, let's say that you have a bank limit of $800,000 and an A bank is going to be financing you, so your Scotias, your CIBCs, your TDs, your RBCs, etc., are going to be financing this property. You need to know your purchasing limit, one. So by having that, you're able to create a much more narrow sandbox to go shopping in. But more importantly, because these properties are typically the ones that are going to be in a bit of a state of disrepair, knowing your financing strategy is gonna help in that you want to make sure this property is going to appraise, right? So purchasing too expensive is going to cause you one issue from an appraisal, because the appraisal might not come in equaling the value. That happened a lot in 2016, right? Late 2016, early 2017, the prices were skyrocketing so fast that appraisers did not have the comparable properties to back check it on. So they would end up coming back with, a lot of buyers would have to add additional cash, right? Because let's say you purchase a property for $1 million and it's only worth $900,000, says the appraiser, the bank's only going to give you their mortgage, their 80%, based on the $900,000. So that additional capital between what you purchased it for and what the bank's going to be mortgaging, you need to come up with.
So in your scenario, that's $100,000
that just somebody you just might have to, or you're gonna have to drop the deal, and let's
depending
hope you
on the
infirm.
conditions you have in your offer, that led to a lot of very hard times on people.
Yeah, because, a lot of guys were going infirm too.
Yeah,
right?
if you go infirm, so those of you who don't know, when you go infirm, it means there are no conditions. That means it's a done deal practically. You wait until closing day and it's yours. There's nothing that could really stop that.
Yep.
That's why conditions are very important to mitigate times like this. Yeah. Sometimes going firm is good.
You need to make sure your ducks are 110% in a row.
Yes. You can't go infirm if you're uncertain about your financing, if you're uncertain that it will appraise for that value. Anything small like that, even home inspections. You have to be okay with anything that pops up on your home inspection. If there might be a leaky basement you didn't know, you have to be okay with that. If it's
your problem now.
It's your problem.
Yep.
And what happened in 2016, like you said, a lot of people didn't know.
Yeah.
They didn't know, really. They just assumed that the market was so strong and everything was going well that it came back and haunted a lot of people where they got stuck with properties that they couldn't afford.
Stuck with a property, they couldn't close on it, so they lost their deposit. Or let's say exactly you get stuck with a property and you now can't pull money out, or you're selling it at a loss in the next year because the market came down so quickly right after that. But the real reason I mentioned the appraisal is because if a property is in such bad shape, banks really only want to lend on things they know they're going to be able to sell and get their money back out, worst case scenario, right? So let's say a property is in such bad shape the roof has a hole in it and there is a leaky basement that's got mold everywhere. we can, as an investor, we can put a number to that and say it's going to cost us X to fix this. I just build that into my numbers, no problem, right? Let's say you think you're good to go on the financing side. The bank goes through. The bank's going to do an appraisal, and then they're going to come back and say, oh, it has this problem, and this problem, and unless they're fixed, we're not going to finance the property. Well, the seller's likely not going to go and fix that before you close.
No.
So you've now lost yourself the lending opportunity from an A bank, and you might have to investigate private mortgages. If you haven't already started looking into that, your timing is probably going to be a bit of in trouble. And that, I mean, again, making sure you just have all that stuff squared away from day one. If you're going to be looking into properties that are a little bit more in disrepair, keep your financing window. Make sure your appraiser comes back positive before firming up on the property. Or no, you have a private money back, like somebody else that's going to do the private money. And there is mortgage brokers out there that specify in private mortgages. I suggest looking for one of those if this is the type of strategy, just so you have somebody as a backup, right? Goal is always to get A bank financing, much cheaper, but you may not always have that option. And just because it needs private money doesn't make it a bad deal, right?
So let's circle back actually. So the first thing you said is get a pre-approval to know your limits.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's usually what we tell our clients. Either first meeting, after the first meeting, that's their next step. You know, talk to the different banks, talk to a mortgage broker, figure things out, or even before our first meeting. So what else is important about that? I understand it gives you kind of a rough estimate of what you can look for. But what else does that allow, let's say you, for example, in your profession? How does that help you out?
So us as agents, it lets us know that this person is serious, right? We're taking, especially with what we do, we take a lot of time to educate the client up front, to show them through many, many different properties. If this person isn't necessarily ready to pull the trigger on a property that with their financing, then there's an opportunity that could be missed. Yeah, from a property. A lot of times, if a property is an amazing, like a smoking hot deal, and there isn't an offer date on that property, it's going to be gone within a day or two. If this person doesn't have their financing squared away, they don't know how much they can purchase, it's going to take a mortgage broker more than 5 business days in a lot of cases to get a fresh file to completion, to approval, right? So if you've already gone to them and they have all of your information, they've given you a ballpark to work in, likelihood is you're going to be able to pull the trigger much faster when you see that property.
You actually just touched on something, and it was you just said something and I totally lost it. Damn. It was what you just
pre-approvals? And
no pre-approvals.
5 days it takes
5
to get your stuff squared away.
No. It was pretty important. I wanted to jump in on it because it's something that we said we would talk about, and it was a perfect segue. But this is me not.
This is what happens when you don't drink enough coffee in the morning of.
I know. I was just like thinking about it and
going to a podcast super tired.
My bad, everybody. So okay, we talked about pre-approvals. We'll circle back again and we'll start from there. So the ball's rolling. You have the properties. I'll touch on that actually too because. Cool. So as you said, it gives us a estimate of what you're looking for and how, what is it? Casino-rama, know your limit, play within it.
Yes,
that's what they say. That's it, right? Yeah, it saves both of us as realtors, also the client, a lot of time on wasted time. Like a lot of wasted time that we don't need to be doing.
Yeah, I can see a deal that's $1 million and works great, but if your budget, if you can't get financing for $1 million, then that's not worth anybody looking at, right?
Yeah, and it's really not. It's not worth anybody's time. It's just wasting time. So that you know what to look for, you know what you're gonna get, and you know what your returns are gonna be. So you have a nice painted picture. Start with the end in mind and work your way to that end. Yep. That pre-approval gives you that end. So buying right, again, it's pretty basic. That was our first step. Now, what's the second step? Where do we go from here? You got your pre-approval. You're all ready to go. Let's say, for our own example, let's say we're pre-approved for $800,000 now.
Cool. So we're pre-approved for $800,000. Your agent, in this case, one of us, is going to go shopping. We're going to be we look for deals. I mean, and most agents should be doing this, looking every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, because deals get posted at different times in the day. So we're going to be looking every day for a deal that fits for you within your criteria, right? Within your price range, within the rents that you're going to need to get for that property, within your conversion budget. Sometimes some people have, a little bit less capital to work with or a little bit less of an appetite for renovations and potential risk associated, right? So we'll have to put that whole picture together for you as an individual investor. And then we're going to begin looking for properties that fit within those criteria. By the time we find a property that works for you, we're going to then be looking at making an offer after you've seen the place, right? You've seen it. We've crunched the numbers. We know it works for you. It's offer time. What happens at offer time? Well, there's a lot of different things that can happen at offer time. There are two very distinct, I would say, listing methods nowadays. You're tending to see a lot of guys. You've probably heard of these bidding wars, right? The reason a lot of these bidding wars are happening is an agent will list a property under market value. Let's say the place is actually worth $8. Agent's going to list it for $7, $6.99, with an offer date that's a week out, saying, "Hey, we're not looking at any offers until this date in the future." What that means basically is they want to get as many people as possible through that property, so that on that one specific day, they're going to have as many people making offers and competing with each other and bidding each other up as possible.
That's actually what you said, and I wanted to touch on. Yeah, it was offer date versus no offer date.
Gotcha.
Just throwing that out there. I remembered.
Okay.
I'm
He's
back.
been reminded. He's back. He's awake. Now that we're there, anyways. So offer date versus no offer date, right? Let's say you have a property with an offer date. What we're finding, at least in our current market, there are some areas of the city that are far trendier than others, and we'll have an offer date on just about every property because an end user is going to want to live in mostly every property. And the ones that don't still want to live enough in the neighborhood that there's enough people willing to take on the project, right? Some other markets, like the ones that we invest in, a lot of people are trying to put offer dates on properties that shouldn't, are not going to have enough of an interest on an offer date to develop those multiple offers and to get them as much over asking as they had anticipated. And a lot of them are going past, missing the offer date, having no offers, having offers that aren't quite what they expected. For us, a lot of the time, that's a very good time to strike on a property to, again, be able to purchase right.
So actually, as a seller, it's not always in your best interest to have an offer date.
No.
So a lot of sellers now will kind of look for an offer date and say, "Hey, why don't we have one?" Well, it depends on the property, depends on the price range, and we've seen it in our area. I know I've seen it a bunch of times where actually people will have offer dates. So let's say a property's worth $1 million. That's the market value. That's what it should be selling for.
Yep.
A lot of agents nowadays will put it for $7.99.
Yeah.
Something ridiculously low, knowing that over 50 people are going to come and see the property.
Yep.
There's going to be a lot of interest. But a lot of the times when those go, there was one that actually on Arlington, I believe. I'm not going to get too into details on it, but I remember we saw it. It was asking something way below. Is a really big, nice Arlington home.
Right.
For those of you who don't know where Arlington is, it's St. Clair and Christie area. It's a very nice street, like big homes.
It's a nice home, detached, should be in like the mid ones in that area.
Exactly.
Right?
So it was asking low ones.
Okay.
Maybe it was even asking
like
9,
under.
Yeah, under 1.
Nuts.
So at first I was like, wow, there's no way it's gonna go for this low. Like, there's no chance. It doesn't even make sense. Don't remember exactly the number it went for, but it was extremely low. And and we looked. Even my clients looked at it like, wow, like, did we miss out? Well, that's because my clients didn't want to go in on closing day and compete with 10 other people.
Yep.
So
I've had that happen as well. I've had clients that are like, and agents have told me the same thing when I called them and I asked them, like, there was one that was listed for $5.99 in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Call the agent after she misses her offer date. Oh, well, nobody came because I priced it too low and they didn't want to compete with the hundreds of people, right? Or they had no idea where to price themselves because they were so far under asking that, or under market value, that people just couldn't comprehend where to price. At that point, you might as well list it for $1, right?
And that's the dangers of listing so low. For a lot of realtors, it's a win-win situation. They price your house low. It'll probably sell relatively fast, and they could say that they sold it for a lot more over asking. That's what you see a lot. You see, I sell everything over asking.
Leverage that for their marketing.
It doesn't. First of all, it doesn't make sense. If you price it correctly and you're 5, 10, 20 grand under asking, a lot of the times that's better than selling for over asking when you're asking hundreds of thousands of dollars less. Yeah. And you see it a lot right now. It's not a good look for realtors. And I think it's an uninformed public that will go to realtors like that because they're like, oh, look, they're selling everything over asking. Yeah, but you're actually losing $100,000.
Some properties it works, right? I'm not trying to say it's a strategy that never works. It does work, especially in the end user market and very nicely finished turnkey properties when the bidding under asking is priced correctly. It's a very powerful strategy that works and is getting a lot of agents many offers and far over asking.
And the way you got to think about it is when you're buying a home as an investment, there's no emotion attached to it at all whatsoever. You have a number, and if the offer exceeds that number, you walk away. No issue with that. You're done. You're happy. On to the next one. Where when you buy an end user property, it's
all emotion.
And that's why you see these higher prices. You walk into the backyard and you go, oh, I can see my kids throwing the ball or my dog pissing somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what sells homes. My dog could piss here.
This is a perfect beat pad. No, but you see that more in end user homes.
So what's the other scenario, right? You either have the offer day scenario or you have the traditional listing style, which is, hey, property is listed. It's listed for what we believe is fair market value, and we're expecting to get at around that or maybe slightly less, right? Yes. Yep. These are the ones where you probably want to strike day 1, day 2, because you know they're not going to be waiting a few days to be holding an offer date. And now those are, I would say, majority of what we look for and the properties that we're looking at, because the wise agents are going to know the properties we look at, first of all, are in pretty rough shape. So wise agent's going to know that end users aren't going to come in here and be all attracted to the property, not going to have multiple offer scenario, that type of thing.
So usually the first offers, they're all excited.
Yeah, exactly. Any offer is good
until
depending on how hard you're lowballing them, but most offers are good, right?
And there's also the opposite too. So you said, day 0, day 1, day 2 on the market. Well, day 0 is technically day 1, but 0 days on the market, 1 day on the market, 2 day on the market.
Yep.
A lot of the times too, you find a property with like 35 days on the market or 50 days on the market, or not so much in Toronto, maybe Scarborough and Etobicoke, more so Scarborough. You'll see like 100 days on the market.
Yeah.
Those are overpriced. Yeah. That is your number one tell that a property is overpriced. When it's on the market that much, it could even be that it's not overpriced on paper, but what the seller and the agent want is actually more. So we've actually seen that scenario too, where something is listed, let's say at $1 million, and you look at it and you go, wow, that's a good deal. I'll do it. And you get into negotiations and they go, well, actually, we're going to sign this back at 1.2. That's what we want. It makes absolutely no sense. Like, this is the most confusing thing about real estate, I would say. It is some agents price something so low and they won't accept that offer. It makes everybody look bad.
Yeah,
you bring your clients confusing. And you're like, yeah, okay, 1 million. Sure, there's no other offers. Yeah, we're going in and asking.
No problem.
That's literally what they ask for. Yeah. And they go, no, we want 200,000 more, or we want 50,000 or 100,000 more. And you're like, hold on. You literally asked me for this. I said, okay, I'll give it to you, and you said, no, I want more.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
It's like going into Shark Tank and asking for $1 million for 20%, and then someone says, hey, yeah, cool, no problem. And like, wait, hold on. I want 2 million.
Yeah, that's exactly.
You will give it to me? Oh, shit. I'll take 2. Thanks.
Yeah, I actually wanted 2. Psych. Now I know you would give me 1. It doesn't make sense.
And then you lose the deal.
Lose
the deal, at least on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Real estate, people will actually pay for it sometimes. But
sometimes.
Anyway, so maybe let's talk about a couple different scenarios that we've dealt with. Seller scenarios. I know when we were just talking about properties that were listed for way too long on the market. Property that I purchased with a partnership, not the recent one, but maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago or so, with some guys from the office. There was one butt ugly property listed too high at $660. That was too high. Yeah, I know. At $660, I mean, the guy had smoked in every room of the house. Doors closed. Like, it was. Oof. quite fun. Handyman special everywhere. Finished the attic off himself. Knob and tube this and that. Had our inspector did a moisture reading in the basement. 99% along the wall that's in the yeah. It was fun. So these guys were on the market for like a month and a half. I mean, which
is like a long time
for Toronto real estate to be on the market for a month and a half with no action is a long time. We were able to go in. We kind of had the understanding that the agent was going to be repricing the property soon because at this point his sellers were actually leaving the country and they had to find a way to sell this thing soon, right? So we were able to get it locked up at 605, 60K or say 55K under asking. Nice. After an inspection, got it down to 590. So, I mean, pretty significant lowball and a pretty good deal. I mean, deal of the year at that point.
At the end, yeah. All things considered.
All because, again, it was priced too high to begin with. So these guys now had to carry the property for an extra month or two, lost money on that. And likely, if they were priced probably around the 620 mark, they probably, from day one, they probably would have landed in the 610 to 620 mark to begin with, right?
So they would have saved a month, got more money,
but they started too high, and they sat and they sat and they sat, and then eventually you get to a point of desperation where two things happen. You're desperate to sell, and you sat on the market for so long that you've kind of tarnished the property's reputation a little bit.
Yeah.
Other people look at it and they say, whoa, hold on. Why is it on the market for so long? Something must be really wrong with this place, right?
Which usually there is.
Is usually the case. And then, or it's been overpriced.
Or it's
the property could be perfect.
Which is something.
But it could have been way overpriced, right? Exactly. And then if you're able to kind of catch that seller in that moment of weakness where they're going to be bringing the price down anyways, but before anybody else on the market is aware of that, then a lot of times you can strike a good deal that way. We've had other properties where multiple offers happened. The seller did not get their price. So this was a good one. Actually, one of my favorite ones. Multiple offer happened. This was the property that was listed at $599. I mean, we knew it was worth close to $7, if not a hair over $7. But the agent sets her offer date on the day of the Raptors parade. So not a single soul came to make an offer on that property for two reasons. One, because everybody was not home and not dealing with any kind of real estate transaction that day.
Yes. And
for the second reason, she was priced so far under market value, nobody knew where to actually place their offers if they were to bring any, right? So that hits. Her sellers go, what the hell? I thought it was going to sell like crazy if you put an offer date on this thing, right? And we put it so cheap. What's going on? Should have at least had some offers. No offers. Phil comes in the next day, says, hey, what's going on? Figure out what's going on. She's going to be relisting it. Make an offer at a little bit closer to fair market value once it's relisted, which I think in this case was 680, 685, somewhere in that ballpark. Gets accepted the same day. Lots of conditions. Go through our conditions, firm up, and away we go. Happy buyer and happy-ish seller.
So, okay, let's go back to conditions now.
Yeah.
There's usually two conditions that I look for, especially in investment, but more so almost standard conditions that we use for almost every client.
Yep.
And that would be financing.
And inspection.
Those are the two that you usually get. I mean, financing sometimes you can get away with if you know you're qualified. You're absolutely certain. You're super confident. You make a lot of money. And you have money in the bank and whatever, that sometimes you can get away with getting rid of that, which does strengthen your offer.
Yes.
The least amount of conditions you have, the better your offer is, because
the stronger it's going to look to the seller.
Exactly. It sometimes that could even save you some money on it.
Yep.
I mean, you offer me $1 million for a property, but you have 10 conditions, or someone else offers me $990, no conditions, I'll probably just go, you know what?
I'll take the sure thing $990.
I'll take it. Yeah. I know I have that $990.
Yeah. Because I know the risk is going to be, maybe this guy at $1 million backs out a week and a half later. By the time this guy is gone, my $990 guy is also gone on to something else.
Exactly.
Right?
So then you might have to settle for $980 or whatever it is.
And then you're long on the market, and then you start getting into those other problems again.
Yes. So it's timing is really important. Conditions are important though, especially as an investor. You want to be sure that you could afford it, so financing, and you want to have a good idea of what you're going to be spending on the property before you close.
Yes.
So inspections give you that good idea.
Yeah.
You'll know what's wet in the basement, where it might need to be fixed, what you can get away with. If everything's in good shape, is it knob and tube, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things that you can look for, and inspections sort of give you that safety net of this is what's wrong. And inspectors are very good at their jobs. I mean, most.
The ones that we will recommend are very good at their job.
The ones that we work with are very good. I mean, they go into every inch of the house and they look at it. And it's crazy. I mean, I was just at an inspection, as I said, and had to climb in the roof with the old installation. And it's not something that's fun for most people. I guess inspectors love it.
They must enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah, and good money to do it. And so yeah, those are the two. Are there any other clauses that you or conditions that you like to add?
Sometimes there's things like surveys that I want to be looking at, depending on if maybe it's a little bit of an odd layout of the land there, or if there are some strange, maybe there's some other structures on the property. Some of these areas we look at have a lot of elevation changes between two different properties. So things like retaining walls, I want to know, where does my responsibility lie? Is it this retaining wall, this retaining wall, this retaining wall? Those are some big ones. Sometimes lawyer review is a thing. It's kind of just a blanket generic clause.
What do you like to do now before every deal?
Oh, I'm checking permits. I'm checking if after a recent hiccup that one day we'll talk about, I checked. There's a city website, at least in Toronto. I'm sure most municipalities have it, to look for open building permits and violations on a property. Because as I had learned the very hard way, some banks most will not finance you if there are open permits and city violations on a property. And instead of finding that out, 2 weeks from closing when your lawyer does the title search, a lot of times you can just look before you even make an offer online to see, hey, is there any open permits? Is there violations? And you can kind of judge accordingly, right? A little pro tip too with the inspection thing. By the time you get to an inspection, right, you've already likely been through a property one or more times. You can put together a brief scope of work for your game plan for what your contractor is going to do. Bring your contractor with you. This way, you're not going to be going back and forth a few times and getting maybe a ballpark. Then that number goes up and up and up by the time you actually firm up or close on the property. Sorry. You can figure out if you have a good scope of work, you bring your contractor, he's there with the inspector, so when anything pops up that the inspector notices, you can just pass that information along. Ideally, if you can get a firm quote before you have to firm up on the property, that should make things a little bit more solid in terms of your numbers, right?
For sure.
And then you can get them to quote the items right there if you need to do some other negotiation. And then another thing to note on the financing clause. It's not only good to know that, hey, you're able to get the financing. One of the biggest things that I'm looking for the financing clause for is the appraisal coming back correct, for two reasons. Sometimes a lot of clients are, especially as you're just jumping into, let's say, property number one, if you're going to be using the income from the property as a leverage to help you qualify for more property,
which means that you're going to be using, let's say, the rental income from, let's say, the 2 units. Mm-hmm. You're going to say,
claiming it's a rental. Yes. We know it's going to rent for, let's call it $4,000. The appraisal will never come back accurate to market rents. They're always going to be super conservative because they work to protect the banks, right? So especially when it comes to boosting your income on paper, they want to make sure they are as conservative as possible. So if that number, the rent number from the appraisal is going to be an important factor, you want to make sure that appraisal is done before you have to firm up, because if the numbers don't come back, you're in trouble. Second reason, if you don't have a private lender, let's say on the backside, if your appraiser comes back and he says, oh, hey, this property is in absolutely terrible shape, bank, you shouldn't finance this, or the bank sees what's in the appraisal report and decides not to finance it. If you don't have a finance condition to back out on, you could be in trouble there as well, right?
Yep, and you do see that sometimes. That does happen.
Yeah, less so nowadays with the whole paying more than the property's worth. Usually nowadays the appraisals are coming in.
You won't really see appraisals go over what it's worth. They usually just go, it is worth what they bought it for. Yeah. That's it, and that's fine. That's all you want. That's the main goal. And I would say in Toronto, unless you're extremely overpaying, you have a good chance of hitting that.
Yeah.
Toronto's again a booming market, so there's a lot of there's a good chance.
Yeah, I'm more worried about, will the bank finance, period, nothing to do with value, and do those rent numbers come back enough to support you qualifying for this property, right? If those two things are there, you're in good shape. If you're in a point where you could buy the property cash or with a private lender and you don't care, then I mean maybe you don't need that that condition. But always where available, take the conditions, right?
So that's the bulk of the B. Now I want to talk about some differences from the U.S. to Canada, and specifically not even all of Canada. I would say Toronto and GTA. I'm sure there's lower valued markets that a lot of this does apply, but it's a little bit different. For example, you hear it a lot, especially with flippers, the 70% rule, sometimes 80% rule. What that means is you want to buy a property for 70% of the market value. That is that initial B, buying right. That's what they say is really good to do. Now, in Toronto, that is really, 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 really hard to do.
Say near impossible.
Near impossible. If you're buying properties for 70% of what they're valued at, you're practically hitting a home run to start.
Yeah.
And again, it's not bad to look for those. I mean, that's what we look for all the time.
Yep.
I mean, you're going to find a couple that pop up. Will they sell for that? Probably not, because there's going to be 3 or 4 other agents that are like, I want to buy this too, or jump on it.
If they're 70 to 80% of market value, they probably have an offer date on it. They're probably expecting 200,000 over, right?
Exactly. So don't get discouraged. I know, again, we keep going back to Bigger Pockets, but they seem to be the biggest real estate podcast to listen to, most popular. Now, don't get discouraged if you're in Toronto and think that that's what you need to have happen so that you can be successful in investing in real estate, because you don't need that to happen. When you're buying properties for 200,000 or 150,000, like rural America or even rural Canada, Ontario, let's say, it could be done a little bit more so, because the difference is 40 grand maybe on the price, 50 grand. You know, it's worth 200 grand and you're buying for 150. That's a huge difference right there. That's 25%. So, I mean, you could find that in Toronto, where they're $1 million properties.
You're not talking about a difference of $300,000. A seller's not going to just leave. No, in most cases.
In most cases, you might find it, and I mean, you've found some that are, I would say 80%.
Yeah, 80 and 80 above. But I mean, especially to find those 70% gold mines and things, for a seller to think leaving 300 grand on the table is a wise decision is very, very rare. And I think one of the larger, two of the larger things for Canada and Canadians versus Americans in the way that they purchase investment properties is, one, we have very little access to public information, if you will. So there's not nearly as many guys that are going to get a tax default list or any of those kind of amazing lists that you can access in the States and farm that mailing list, right?
Yeah.
We don't have access to that type of information. Far less, bank step auctions and those types of things. And even the ones that do happen, not necessarily the greatest deals available. I think the biggest difference, though, is in our power of sale process compared to the Americans' foreclosure process. So for those that don't know, foreclosure in Canada almost doesn't exist. I believe there is a way that it can happen, but it is extremely rare. 99.9% of these transactions are done through what's called a power of sale. So both foreclosure and power sale kind of start out the same way, right? Someone's not going to be paying their mortgage. The bank's eventually going to get fed up with it and say, "Hey, we're selling this house on the open market, or we're selling this house in some way, shape, or form, so that we get our money back out, and seller, you move on," type of thing, or owner, you move on away from the property. Foreclosure, a lot of times in the States, it's quick, kicks the owner out quite quickly. And when you're selling a foreclosure, all the bank has to do is make their money back, right? All they have to do is sell it for whatever the loan is. So if you lived in the place for 15 or 20 years and you bought it for, let's call it 500 grand, and you only owe 200 on it, the bank is happy to sell it for 200, get their money back, and move on. If in the same scenario in Canada, if you bought a property for 500 grand and you own 200 on it, but the current market value is 700, let's say, the bank can't just go and sell it for 200 grand.
No.
And you'll see this a lot with people that are kind of new to the Canadian flipping market, if you will.
Yeah.
They try and target those power of sales, and they think, "Oh my God, I'm going to get a swinging deal." right? Oh, it's a power of sale. The bank's selling it. They take all this information from the U.S. podcasts and things, and they think they can just make any dirt lowball offer. The bank's going to look at it. They're going to say, no, thanks, bye. And it's just going to sit on the market, and eventually they will drop it by like 5%, and it's going to sit on the market for another 3 months, and eventually they'll drop it for 5%, and it's just going to sit on the market. The bank has to make sure the seller gets, you have to be selling it for what's fair market value or assumed very close to fair market value, and they have to do the proper due diligence when they're going to be lowering the price.
Which is a really good safety net for sellers in the scenario that you do have to give up your house to the bank. Now, the bank can't just sell it, get back their money, and then you're literally screwed. You do get some sort of reward or whatever monetary value back, so that you're not left with nothing out of the process. You're pretty much forced to sell, and you get what you get instead of being kicked out of your home. That's the difference. So in the States, you're just kicked out. In here,
and they sell for whatever they can get
for
back,
whatever,
and you don't get anything out of it.
They're just looking out for their backs, not yours. Canada, they look out for everybody.
It helps protect our real estate market too, right? Because you don't see those monster swings in pricing of like on the same street you could have a house that sold for $700 and you could have another house that sold for $400, right? Even though those houses were almost identical, just because one was foreclosed on and sold. The homes, it's very easy to comp a home around here that's, even if it was power of sale, right? And there are a lot of other non-power of sale, very similar government bodies that can force a sale of a home. Ontario Public Guardian and Trustee is another one. I know an agent that does almost all of their listings, and even he would say, you might be lucky to get 4% lower than market value.
Yeah,
right? And you're going through a real long, rigorous process to even get that.
It's not necessarily that you're getting
a deal,
a great deal.
Yeah, it's almost harder to get a good deal because there's so many regulations in place to deal with that than to just go find another seller who's kind of already in a rough spot or just doesn't care so much and is willing to just let go of the property quickly on an MLS. Right.
I want to touch on the 70 to 80% rule again. The 70% rule, we'll say. A good way to look at it is something that we did touch on and we did say was that if it's $1 million property and you're buying it for $900,000, that's 90% of what it's worth. That's $100,000 difference. Yeah. Okay. So keep that in mind. You buy a property for $100,000. And you buy it for $70,000, that's $30,000 difference, and that's 70% of the value. Right. So you're saving $30,000, which is 70% still, or 30%, but you're buying it for 70%, or you buy it for 90% of the Toronto value, and you're saving $100,000. Yeah. So it's you're comparing, apples and bananas,
pineapples,
whatever.
No, they still say apple. Whatever.
Pineapples and apples. It's
still real estate. It's just in a different spot.
Okay, on that note,
we're tired, guys.
Yeah. This has been it's really hot in here. It's been a long Monday.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, didn't get a great sleep last night.
What else did we?
That's pretty much. We'll wrap up the B and Brrrr, the buy and Brrrr.
I think one last thing that's worth mentioning is, and I mean we kind of hinted at it throughout the rest of this, is you want to buy value, right? Buy an undervalued property, or what I'll say is maybe an underutilized property.
I think that's what you have to focus on. For everybody listening right now, it's easy to say buy undervalue. You're like, obviously I want to buy something that's
of course
lower. But explain that a little further.
So like underutilization of a property, let's say,
which is super important. Again, I like this. I like that you're using that word.
So let's say you as an investor are looking for a high cash flow rental property. And this kind of fits into our model very frequently. We see these 3-bedroom homes that have 3 bedrooms on the top floor, a living room and a dining room on the main floor, and then your usual basement, which is going to be carved out into its own separate unit. Living room, this is just the easiest example, and I know Brendan Turner on Bigger Pockets talks about this as well, finding 1,000 or 1,200 square foot house that has 2 bedrooms and finding a third, because with that square footage there is a third bedroom left available somewhere. We do basically the same thing. We'll take a 3 and we'll turn it into a 4. because we know most of our tenants are not going to be operating a full dining set. It's just a dead room. In most houses nowadays, tell me the last time you used your formal dining room.
Formal dining rooms are sort of a thing of the past.
Yeah.
It's more of just like a decorative piece,
right, room, exactly.
Which, in my opinion, is a huge waste of space in a rental property.
Monster waste of space.
Just giant waste of space.
And with in a lot of these properties, all you need to do is slap up some drywall and throw on a door.
Yeah.
And away you go. You have an additional bedroom.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the biggest room in the house.
Yeah,
too.
it usually is. Yeah. The one on the main floor, front window.
Yeah.
That's in a lot of cases an extra like $600 to $800 on your rents, which for a lot of people buying properties in Toronto, for example, could be the difference from break even and a significant cash flow.
Almost $1,000 a month.
Just in adding drywall and a door. Right.
Yeah,
and just from being able
fee.
to see that underutilized space and turning it into something that could be used a little bit better.
I like that point.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna wrap up the B and Brrrr. That's a rough primer of it. I think actually we got into good detail on it.
Yeah.
And if you do want to know more, you can contact us and we can go into more detail on it. And there's other ways of learning about it too. Do your own research and just keep your eyes open. Listen to what we said in this. It is pretty important. Again, looking at the value, utilization, buying right properties, the right areas. Mm-hmm. It's a big part of your investing strategy, especially if you want to Brrrr and repeat the process.
Yes,
that's big on the B. Buy.
Big on the B.
Buy. Okay. Let's talk about what's been in the news lately before we wrap this up.
Toronto news. Well, I don't know if anybody remembers. It must have been like 6 months. It must have been like a year and a half ago at this point. The genius that decided to go swimming at the Ripley's Aquarium with the sharks, butt-ass naked.
The naked shark man.
The naked shark guy, Dave, I believe is his name. I don't know his last name. I just know his name is Dave. Apparently, he's a BC guy, I guess. So he was only here for a short while to go for a little bit of a dip and then take off back home. His trial just wrapped up. I don't even know why we're talking about this, but it's hilarious.
It is pretty funny.
Guy's trial wraps up. He gets a year probation.
Not bad.
Not bad for going swimming butt naked with sharks. He's lucky to be alive, actually.
Yeah.
So he gets a year probation, no jail time. Walks out of the court with a quote like, "Just another day in the life of Dave." This guy's a fucking beauty.
Yeah, the guy's a gem. We should have him on.
We should have Dave on the pod. If anybody knows Dave, the shark guy,
naked shark,
hook us up.
I don't know. Is he gonna come naked here? Is that just the thing he does?
I'd be okay if he was maybe tops. That's the word.
No, still, it's too hot in here to have a sweaty naked guy.
Maybe he'll bring his shark pals.
Oh, okay. Also, anyways, Oktoberfest is reaching Ontario Place the weekend of September 26th to 28th. Yeah, so September Fest. Yeah, I don't know. That doesn't really make sense, but
c'est la vie.
Not much does.
Sausages, beer, October-y things.
Yeah, check it out. It's
Ontario
be a good
Place.
Time.
And what else happened last week? Oh baby, for those dog lovers. I think this happens every year. Trinity Bellwoods had a pug grumble, I think they called it. Like just basically a swarm of pugs take over Trinity Bellwoods.
I wish I went.
So if you're into pugs, tiny
Who's
doggos, I'm sure it's adorable. Yeah, I know. If you're not into pugs, you're the worst.
Go jump in the shark
tank. Shark tank.
Dave.
Go pull a Dave. That's it now.
Yeah.
But a day in the life of a Torontonian. You have pugs, sausages in September, and naked shark guys named Dave.
All right, guys. Thanks for bearing with us on another episode of Phil and the Kid. Again, you can find me at Spiro Vriselis on Instagram or Spiro Vriselis at Facebook, LinkedIn, or check out my website, spirovriselis.com. How about you, Phil?
Same spots, not Spiro obviously, but Phil Gardner on Facebook, LinkedIn, philg.re on Instagram, and philgardner.ca.
So before we just finish it up, we're going to be having an episode. We have our first guest next week.
We do.
And so that's dropping. You want to talk about her first?
I'll give her a brief intro. I'm sure a lot of our listeners do know, if they know me from other circles. Monica Jazik from Real Property Investments is going to be on talking about her story, what she's doing, and an event she's hosting in November for her members.
Yep.
We'll get into more detail next week.
Super happy to have her on as our first guest. And,
yeah. Lucky her.
Lucky. Yeah, we'll have more coming in the near future. But again, guys, thanks for listening, and I think we're done.
Yeah, take care.
Woo! You can find us on YouTube, iTunes Podcasts, Google Play, Podbean, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Make sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.